Thank you. Vamshi should have set the expectation lower. You put the bar too high. Hello, everybody. I can't see very well. How's everybody doing? Yeah. Awesome. Very, very cool. It's my first time speaking at TiECon. There's two reasons I'm excited. One is this is kind of the, if I'm using a rock and roll analogy, this is kind of the Woodstock for all entrepreneurs, minus the drugs, of course, and all the stuff that goes with it. I speak at a lot of conferences. This is one of the conferences I knew that typically when they introduce me, they're like, Chandar, I can't say the last name, but this one I knew, they're going to nail the last name. So it's all good. It's all good. It's all positive from here. And I can't see very well from here. It's dark from here. How many of us are marketers in the room? Okay, I see some hands up front and the back, so I'll assume 50% of the audience are marketers. And how many of us are entrepreneurs in the room? Okay, great. There's about 30% of the audience. It's a good eye test for me. So what I want to talk about today is regardless whether you're a marketer or an entrepreneur, how do we win in this new world? The new world where the customer-buyer relationship is fundamentally changing. And in this new world that I call the engagement economy. And what's the things that we can take away from here that we can all collectively say that this is what we need to apply to go win? Because I have the privilege, as you said, the barber's barber, and the privilege for me is to work with some of the best marketers in the world, the best CMOs in the world of some of the best brands. And I've kind of did the pattern matching across them of all their issues and how they're solving them and come up with a set of things that I want to talk to you today. So to kick it off, this world that I talked about, there's lots of noise. And we all are facing that today, that there is 2,900 messages per day that's being blasted. There's a blizzard that comes at people, whether you're a consumer or you're a B2B marketer, or a B2B, whether you're a consumer and B2C, or if you're actually a B2B buyer. There's 2,900 messages per day. We can probably recognize 30 and remember 3. So while all these things are coming at us, our attention spans are going down significantly every day. But on one hand, you have this noise, but what this noise has also done is created information abundance and given that power to the buyer. So even with B2B or B2C, 66 to 90% of a buyer's journey today is self-directed. Think about it, right? Whether you're buying turbo engines from GE, software from Marketo, or cars from Mercedes or Toyota, you're self-directing your journeys more than ever before. Now, how many of us bought a car in the last 2 years? Okay, I see hands around the room here. Now, I'll tell you my story. I bought a car. My first car I bought in the United States was in the early to mid-'90s, was the Acura Integra. And that was the coolest car for the least amount of money you could buy. And that was the car I bought. And when I bought that car, I showed up to the dealership in the first step of the process. And the seller had all the power. He had me because I had no research, nothing. I showed up and said, I threw all my emotion in there saying, I want to buy this, right? My wife and I bought a car 6 months ago. And we showed up to the dealership in the last step of the process. In fact, the dealer had no idea that we were self-discovering journeys. And as we were going through this process, till we showed up and said, that's the car we want, that's the color we want, we know you got it, I have the cost, and let's go, right? And that's happening. People are buying software from Marketo, or as I said, turbo engines from GE. Buyers are empowered more than ever before. And the Captain Obvious question here, how many of us use Amazon? Okay, there's every, and I don't even need to see, I can ask this question this way. Because we all have got the Amazon experience in us saying we want every brand to engage with us. I love me some me, as Cheryl Owens once said. And I want every brand to talk to me. And if it's not personalized, if it's not meaningful to me, I reject that brand. As you can see, 87% of people, buyers, demand a personal experience. So what it's caused is this shift from the power being with the seller, sales has had its day, to the power being to the buyer. And that puts marketing right at the forefront of this change because we can become the stewards of shaping that customer experience. But to do that, we got to change as marketers, and even as marketers in your companies as entrepreneurs, is going from this old thing of marketing to people. Nobody wants to be marketed to engaging with people. And I chose the word people here and not buyers because business, regardless of whether it's B2B or B2C, I call it it's B2H. It's business to human. Because even in B2B, on the other side of a purchase order is a person. And what we got to do is think about building relationships with people and by engaging with them. And ultimately, this world where the buyer has the power and we have to drive engagement rather than old school marketing is what I call the engagement economy, this new world called the engagement economy. The question is, how do we all win in the engagement economy, right? As entrepreneurs, as marketers in the room, and it starts off with what does winning mean, right? Winning for us marketers means a very profound 1981 book for marketing was written by guys named Al Ries and Jack Trout, some of the greatest marketers in old America. And they said, winning in marketing boils down to one thing, and only one thing. It is winning the battle for the mind. Because when we buy anything, think about products and services we buy. We actually don't buy those products or services. We buy the connection. We buy emotion. We buy our perceptions. And that's what we're buying. And that's what the battle for the mind is. Only those who win the mind can win the marketplace. And the great brands have known that, and they have used that emotion as a weapon of mass influence to build that connection with the mind and have an association for life with the mind in such a way that they own an attribute in our mind. In other words, if you think of an attribute, you automatically think of the brand. So I'm going to have you play along with me today, just a simple test. I'm going to give you some attributes, and I want you to think about in 5 seconds the brand that comes to your mind, right? And you can shout it out if you want. The first attributes I'm going to throw at you, different, creative, beautiful products. Extra points. That was the first brand that came to my mind. They won the battle for my mind because that's what I think. When I think of these attributes, I think of this brand. Okay, the next I'm going to give you is action, athleticism, winning. Nike. So they have won the battle for my mind and on your minds too. And I'm going to give you luxury, performance, engineering. Mercedes, Tesla. See, that's the beauty of it, right? There's different brands have won different attributes. So for me, Marketo customer, Tesla is the one that's etched. In fact, I was telling the story last week when I was speaking at another event, is the gentleman said, the lady here said BMW. For me, it was BMW, and the most difficult thing to do for brands is unetch themselves unetch somebody else, the competition from the buyer's mind, and etch themselves. That's the most difficult thing to do, and Tesla's done that in my mind, which is great. Now, that's BMW, or that's in this case Tesla, that's Nike, and there's Apple. And you're like, come on, man, those are the best brands in the world. How do the rest of us do it, right? So for that, I'm going to give you the 3 A's. Now, marketing has always been about the 4 P's, but Philip Kotler did that in the 1960s, and our attention spans in the last 30 years have gone down significantly, so I'm going to give you 3 letters rather than 4. Okay? So I'm going to start with 3 A's and talk about how we can win the battle for the mind, because that's what victory is. The battle for the mind has to start by winning the battle for the heart. You can only capture the mind by winning the heart. And you can win the heart through the art of storytelling. Now, it's interesting that I'm coming to a tech conference with a lot of great entrepreneurs and technologists and starting saying about storytelling. What's up with that? But the reality is, it is true engagement, and I talked about having engagement, has its roots in storytelling. And as I said, stories are what connect with people at an emotional level. It's not about the data, it's about the stories. And engagement starts with the stories. It takes the art to reach the heart and ultimately build that emotional connection. Now let's take an example for this. Here is data on child adoption in the United States last year. 111,820 waiting to be adopted, 53,549 adopted, and 52% adopted by foster parents. I touched my heart and said, does it do anything to me? No. That's data. But behind those 53,549 waiting to be adopted are 53,549 unique stories that are life-changing, heartwarming, emotional, inspiring. And that connects with the heart more than just the data. Now, I'll tell you this. Personally, there's a friend of mine, Steve and Shelley, they told me the story years ago, and that's kind of stuck with my heart as an example. Right? They tried adopting a baby. They tried many years to have a kid, had miscarriages. and then tried a couple of years to adopt a baby, and it was draining for them emotionally and financially. And they said, we're going to give it up. We're going to try for one more year to adopt, and maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what, that's what it was meant to be. So they do that in January, goes all the way, and they're going to give it up in December. November 15th, nothing happens till then for 11 and a half months, 10 and a half months. And then they get a call from their lawyer and saying, some widow, they live in New York, by the way, some widow sitting in Hawaii, in Maui, is just chosen them to the baby she's going to deliver in 4 weeks. They're like, wow, that was the call meant to be. So they go get all the furniture. They don't know the sex of the baby, so they paint the rooms, one pink, one blue. They're all excited. They get the furniture. They book their tickets to Hawaii. And the day after Thanksgiving, the lawyer calls and said, sorry, the boyfriend has custody issues. You lost it. They're not going to get it. So here they were, going up, went down. And then the story continues. And the day after Christmas, they get the call again saying, you know what? Things have changed. The boyfriend is moving to Alaska. And now you're going to actually get the custody. And think about the roller coaster of emotions. And then they take the flight on December 30th to LA. December 31st night, they land in Hawaii, in Maui. They go to the hotel room, 1:30 in the morning, and they get a note on the hotel desk saying, congratulations, it's a girl, because the baby got delivered that night. Now, why I'm telling you this story is you don't know Steve, and I do. But when he told me that story, it stuck with me. When he told me that story years ago, and that's the kid right now. And every time I see them, that data didn't mean anything to me on adoption, but that story connected with me. And that's what we got to do as brands. Regardless in B2B, whatever technology product we sell, we have to master storytelling. Because I always tell people, we are all in love with our products. And people don't buy candles because they like candles. People buy candles because they love light, the value of what we sell. And stories is what connects with what we sell. Yes, you reach for the heart. When you reach for the heart, you capture the mind. Now, as a brand, we all have to have there's 10 attributes here that was pictured. What are the attributes that we stand for when we tell stories as a brand? I don't know what that is. For us, for me personally at Marketo, these are 3 things that we do, is be interesting. If you're not interesting, nobody cares. And be epic, be interesting, be memorable when you tell a story. 2 is be authentic. The story of self is powerful, and especially the story of self being vulnerable is very, very powerful. It connects with people. And authenticity, is the foundational fabric of any great storytelling. And it's powerful stuff. So being authentic, and Martin Luther King Jr. was as authentic as it gets, and he connected with people. And be relevant, right? Today's world, relevance is the key to connection. Because if you're not relevant, it doesn't matter. They will tune you out. And those are the three I stick with, and own it and drive it. And it's up to you as your brands, as marketers, as well as entrepreneurs, on what you want to take as attributes, but bring those stories to life, and that's how your brands build those connections. So we've talked about the art of storytelling. Now let's talk about the next A, which is adaptive engagement. That's a fancy word, but it's about taking the art and now bringing the science in, and combining the science and the art to maximize engagement. And it's really about fundamentally 3 things: bringing these together to listen to a customer at every stage of the journey, to learn on what they're doing, behavior, and engage based on listening and learning. Now, what's interesting, the concept of listening has fundamentally reversed for us marketers over the last 100 years, right? When brands started marketing at people, brands talked and buyers listened, right? And here was the first ad ever. I thought you'd find it interesting. This was the first TV ad ever in 1947, this concept of brands talking and people listening. Let's see the world's first TV ad.
America runs on Bulova time.
That's it, guys. That was the first ad. Pretty short. Marketing was simple back then. It's changed a lot since then. But this concept has changed of brands talking and people listening to people talking and brands listening. In fact, people talking and everybody else listening, because buyers are influencing other buyers more than ever before. But listening is the starting point of it. But it's about listen to the buyer at every stage. It's about learning from the buyer at every stage, and it's about engaging that buyer based on what you listened and learned. In other words, behavior-based marketing. So behavior-based marketing, what I call adaptive, is the key to success for us entrepreneurs and marketers when you want to win that battle for the mind. Because what I do tells you a lot more about me than who I am. I'll give you an example of listen, learn, engage, and about marketing to me based on what I do as opposed to who I am. How many of us use Netflix? Okay, that's another Captain Obvious question. There's a lot of us here. And the idea of Netflix is doing listen, learn, engage at scale. Now, listen, learn, engage is not a new concept, but doing it at scale with technology is the new concept. So let me give you the Netflix example. Now, the first time I used Netflix, they marketed to me they engaged me based on who I am because there was no behavior data with them, right? 40-plus-year-old guy, Indian American guy, and they said, okay, here's our recommendation. The algorithm said, here are the set of movies that he would like. You look at some, crime and some drama, or the movies picks for me based on marketing or engaging me based on who I am. But then as I engaged with the brand and as I started watching movies, they listened, they learned, and they engaged me based on my behavior. And here is my Netflix screen 3 weeks ago. My wife and I have a common account. Guess who watches the movies, right? I like them too. So, but the point is, it's behavior-based marketing, and that's the key thing I want to say. Adaptive engagement is about adapting to that customer at every stage, listening to their behavior, learning from their behavior, and engaging the next step of the journey based on what that behavior was. And that really is the key to success because we tune off brands that send us the same message every time, regardless of what we're doing. So if I go to Toyota.com today, and I go, for example, and search for red Priuses, the next engagement with Toyota on the brand, on any channel, the email channel, the web channel, the social channel, is about a red Prius. It's not about, hey, Chandar, check out this SUV because I think that's what you would like. So that is behavior-based marketing. And they use Marketo, that's on the side. But that's behavior-based marketing, this adaptive engagement piece. Now the challenge for us, marketers and entrepreneurs is, yeah, it's all good stuff. You can tell me to be adaptive. And you can use technology at scale to be adaptive. But there's a lot of technology out there. In fact, there's a friend of mine called Scott Brinker, who runs Chief Martech, who's actually counted the marketing technologies out there. And there's 3,700 plus marketing technologies out there today. And every year he counts it, there's almost a Moore's law that is happening in marketing technology. Not as dramatic as that, but while consolidation is happening on one place, we're seeing a lot of proliferation of marketing. Because unlike sales technologies, which is more deterministic, marketing is anywhere from coffee cups and T-shirts to strategy. And it spans the spectrum across these. And there's so many technologies in all these different components that marketing is spanning. So the point is, how do you make sense out of, okay, you're taking the art of storytelling, you wanted me to do listen, learn, engage at scale, but where do I start? How do I make sense of all these technologies? Now the good news is that there is a method to the madness. And when I look at the 5,000 plus customers that I have, we at Marketo and the thousands of other customers and other companies, the way they think about it is in the concept of a hub, a core engagement technology, a digital marketing platform, and a set of ancillary things, a solar system kind of. What's the sun and what are the planets that revolve around the sun to create that ecosystem of engagement? And this is how I would request all of us that if you want to build an engagement engine, this is what we need to think about. Like there's a core engagement aspects of listening, learning, engagement across your own channels, your paid channels. But no single marketing technology can solve that. So for example, even me at Marketo, our team, we drink our own champagne. We have our engagement hub, which is Marketo, but we use a partner for webinars. We use a partner for content. We use a partner for social. We use a partner for some advanced data enrichment, for events, et cetera, and we plug into CRM. So that's how we should start thinking about the science of marketing, And how do you take all these technologies and create an ecosystem approach that ultimately is creating that equilibrium for us to engage these customers? So that's the art of storytelling and connecting to the heart through the stories and then combining the science to engage based on behavior and doing it with the hub and spoke approach of an engagement hub and these ancillary technologies. The third A is for us to win the battle for the mind is to start thinking, engaging across the life cycle. Now, if you think of our customer, all of us here, as entrepreneurs, marketers, we all want to do this. We want to acquire new customers faster. We want to retain them longer. We want to grow their lifetime value. And we want to convert as many as them to advocates. But it's challenging today, and I'll tell you why. But before I get to that, I want to talk about advocates. Why do advocates matter more today for us B2B marketers and entrepreneurs as much as B2C? If I just focus on the advocates matter today because of the point I made 20 minutes ago, that buyers' are self-discovering journeys are being influenced by other customers and buyers more than ever before. So rather than the vendor's opinion on anything, a buyer today is being influenced by an advocate, somebody who's passionate about your brand and making decisions based on that. So here's a study by a firm that specializes in this, voice of customer sites, called TrustRadius. And they just said, like, how do buyers get influenced, B2B buyers, as much as B2C, get influenced in terms of their journey, and how do they buy? And if you look at it, referral from a friend, colleague, peer, user reviews of even anonymous people, but who are other buyers, influence them more. And those people giving these are these advocates. That's why advocates matter today more than others. Now the question is, who is an advocate? And a lot of times in marketing, we have confused the definition of an advocate. So case in point one, your advocate doesn't have to be somebody who spends the most money with you. A lot of times we see that who's the best people? Oh, those are people spending a lifetime value is the highest. No. In fact, we've seen many cases where people spend less money with us, but are willing to shout from the rooftop much more than people who spend a lot of money with us. So that's point number one. And point number two is not confusing loyalty with advocacy. And that is a mistake that happens again and again. So I'll give you an example of this. I use an airline. I got 500,000 miles in the airline. I've been using it for 15 years. Now, if you look at it statistically, I'm pretty loyal to that airline. I've been using it for 15 years. I've stayed with him. But that's when, and you might say, oh, he's loyal. He must really like it. I don't. I'm not an advocate. I'm actually a madvocate based on the skies not being that friendly recently. Right? But that's the concept of locked-in loyalty. And locked-in loyalty exists in B2C as much as B2B. Like, you're contractually bound for 3 years, or, I have this contract with my phone company, or I have 500,000 miles. I can't get out. But am I shouting from the rooftop? No, I'm not. And that's the key thing, is understanding that locked-in loyalty is different than advocacy. Because for advocacy, we need guys like this.
We swapped out the Whopper for a Wendy's burger to see what would happen.
This is clearly a Wendy's burger.
Clearly.
Right. Okay, they have the square patty.
I hate Wendy's.
What's going on?
I eat Burger King. I don't eat Wendy's.
What can I do to resolve this?
All I want is a Whopper.
Okay.
Get me a Whopper.
Okay. There's the boss. We just pulled a prank on you.
Whopper. Anything else is a freaking disappointment.
I'll get out this thing. Oh.
So that's an advocate, right? But I'm not a Burger King guy, but I like that ad. I think that's an advocate. And that's what we got to get, these advocates. And how do we get these people shouting from the rooftops for our brands? And the answer is that we got to kind of reverse engineer that, and you can't start saying, okay, I'm going to get these. Okay, I've sold somebody something. I want to make them an advocate. It doesn't happen. We got to take the steps before that. Is we got to focus on retention, adoption, and growth marketing before we get somebody to become an advocate for us. Now, interesting is that most marketing, 87% of us marketers and entrepreneurs who have marketers in your teams, we kind of focused on getting people in. It's about the transaction. It's not about the interaction over time. And we spend a lot of money on getting people, but we're not programmatic about, are they adopting all the things, software or technology that they bought from us? Are they happy with that? And are we doing retention in terms of what's the right things to market to them at the right time in terms of when renewal is coming up and what's appealing to them, what's not? And are we positioning the right set of incremental products to sell to them? Because you ultimately create stickiness, and they're happy with more products, they become better advocates. And the data shows, as I said, is only 13% of marketers, or as entrepreneurs and CEOs, marketers in your teams are doing this today. In fact, at Marketo, we didn't do this till 2 years ago. We're not programmatically focused on driving that passion across retention and growth. And that's a change that we all have to do in marketing or as entrepreneurs in our teams. Start thinking about spend is not just on acquisition. Spend is on retention and growth, ultimately for us to create these advocates. A simple metaphor for us to think about is, I talked about, this is not about B2B or B2C. I said it's about B2H, business to human. So you got to think about, how am I going to get this person to be an advocate or build that relationship? Build the bond early and grow up with that customer, evolve and grow up with your customer to ultimately build a relationship for life. And then you will get somebody who's passionate about you. This ad is a great metaphor for what I just said.
Let's go, Dad!
Come along with me, we have all we'll ever need. Today's the day that will last forever.
Do you want to know
On our way
secrets,
we go, along a winding road. The sunshine will last forever.
Come here, Dad!
I'll be with you always. I'll be with you today.
What do you think, Doc? Oh, Doc! You can do it, Doc.
I'll be with you always.
Hey, why the name Doug?
I'll
Hey, buddy.
be with you today.
This is Duke. Hi, Duck. Duck. Wait for me, Duck! Wait for me!
That's an awesome commercial, but I have a tear every time I see that. But again, that is a metaphor for building relationship, building the bond early and growing with the customer, regardless of whether we sell technology products or not, to ultimately get that customer, to win the battle for the mind, as I've talked about. So when we do that retention and growth and build that relationship, automatically we can get to this advocacy, which becomes important because these people influence others in the buying process. So to recap, folks, winning the battle for the mind and winning the engagement wars is about the art of storytelling. Capture the heart and you'll reach the mind. It's about using technology at scale to behavior-based marketing, adaptive engagement, adapting at every stage, and then marketing and engaging across the life cycle. I've said a lot for you today, and I've read recently that our attention spans are less than a goldfish. We're only at 9 seconds now. Goldfish were at 10 seconds. So there's a good chance you'll forget almost everything I said today in 2 hours. So I want to kind of say, okay, if somebody asks you in the water cooler, what did Chandar say? Yeah, he said about 3 A's. He said adaptive, art of storytelling, something. But what did it really mean to me? What's the key takeaway? So I want to give you a key takeaway. And for that, I want to channel my inner Michael Pollan. Now, how many of you know Michael Pollan? Okay, there's a few of us in the back who does. So Michael Pollan is a professor at UC Berkeley and a very, very well-known guy in the food industry. And what Michael Pollan has done is all the billions of dollars that we spend in the food industry in terms of diets and all these different programs, he took all those and boiled it down to 7 words of advice for all of us. And he said, eat food, not much, mainly plants, right? It's this middle 33% that I'm working on, because I am vegetarian. The first and third, reasonably good at. But that's a great advice, like taking all that advice and giving it to 7 words. So I'm going to channel my inner Michael Pollan and said, if somebody asks you in the water cooler, what does really mean for us to win the battle for the mind? And here are my 7 words. Tell stories, listen, learn, engage throughout the life cycle, and you'll win the battle for the mind. Thank you.